on the topic, I mean, in terms of your sort of strategy currently, you're obviously taking the populist pathway.
What does that mean?
Well, appealing to people's more emotional levels, I would guess. I mean, certainly you tap very strong ideological language quite frequently.
Like what?
Left wing, this and that, right wing. I mean, it's that type of ideological spectrum.
I never really talk about left or right.
Anyways, a lot of people.
I don't really believe in that.
Okay.
Taking a short break now from what's unfolding in the Middle East to turn to some domestic politics. What you heard there, what you saw there was some of the now infamous Apple interview. Pierre Poilievre snacking on an apple during a recent conversation with a journalist. Our front bench is here now to get into the politics of the Orchard Overture. Back now, Kathleen Monk, Dan Moulton, Larissa Waller, and Sabrina Nanji. Hey guys, thanks for sticking around. Larissa, I'll start with you. I guess my main question from a political strategic point of view is this thing going viral, which, much more perceptive people than me on social media have told me it has, is that a net positive or is it a negative for Pierre Poilievre from where you sit?
Oh no, it's a net positive. Listen, the video was brilliant. It ticked off the people that it would tick off, and that gave it more earned media. It motivated the people that it wants to motivate. So the partisan conservatives, the people who will volunteer in an election, they're fundraising off of this video. They're making T-shirts of this video. But the real sweet spot on this one, I was driving home from a lunch today, and my best friend called me, and she does not follow politics at all. And she called me to talk to me about the Apple video and what did I think. And when it gets to her, it really breaks through. And so I think the video was brilliant. I think it ticked off the right people, and I think it motivated the right people.
That sentence, Kathleen, it ticked off the right people and it motivated the right, is so interesting, right? Because it's not necessarily how we always view things, but in politics, sometimes that does matter. What do you think about the impact of this video, good or bad for Poilievre?
Well, as a performance, it certainly was interesting, but I think it's important to remember it was a performance, right? It was filmed by the Conservative Party. It was put out and amplified by the Conservative Party. And frankly, after 20 plus years in politics, you kind of expect, Pierre Poilievre to be pretty good at his political rhetoric. I mean, they actually teach politicians in media training this kind of stuff, the whole redirect and the idea of pushing back and asking journalists questions themselves when they ask questions to you. But to me, frankly, I disagree. It wouldn't come as a surprise with Larissa. Because actually, I see this clip as punching down, not punching up. He's punching down on this journalist. And it's reminiscent of another politician who also punched down. Remember Donald Trump? Remember when he punched down on a New York investigative journalist during one of his campaigns by mocking him openly, by calling him disabled? People didn't react well to that. They didn't react well to how Donald Trump at the time was punching down. And I think actually can have a lot of negative effect for frankly, Pierre Poilievre too. Sure, he's getting headlines on Fox News. He's even getting into some of the UK papers, I believe. But sometimes that kind of viralness doesn't actually turn out the votes that you need or create the popular opinion you need either.
Dan, what do you think about it from a strategic point of view? Because I do think, I'm a member of the media, but I realize the criticism that a lot of people have of us, and that it is it seems to be motivating for at least a certain flank of conservatives.
Well, I think that's true. I think it is motivating for people that have probably already signed up for a membership in the party and voted for Pierre Poilievre in the leadership race. This is something that directly appeals to a group of Canadians that are already planning to vote for Pierre Poilievre in the next election. And so while I agree with Larissa that this probably does do wonders for Conservative fundraising right now, and it's nice to see them slap it on a T-shirt and sell it to folks across the country that are willing supporters and excited about them, I don't see this as appealing to far more important constituencies for Pierre Poilievre in the next election. I think if I'm his camp right now and I'm looking at the recent polling numbers, it's pretty exciting to see softening support for the Liberals among women over the age of 50. That's a key constituency for Liberals. It's really important in Ontario and British Columbia that those voters turn out for the Prime Minister and for the Liberal Party if they're to be re-elected. And so Pierre Poilievre's got to try and ensure that those voters are not showing up, that they're not showing up to the polls to vote Liberal, they're showing up to vote for another party. And I would hypothesize that this video is pretty off-putting to voters in that category. I think he does look like he's punching down, to borrow Kathleen's point. I think he looks a little bit smug. And I think a lot of women over the age of 50 would look at this and say, I don't think that is the kind of person I want in the Prime Minister's office. I don't think that's the kind of attitude and behavior. It looked impolite. It looked smug. And I don't believe that it will inspire the kind of voters that Pierre Poilievre needs to access, who are not already excited to vote for him in the next election.
I guess that's an interesting question, Sabrina. If we are, attempting to analyze the impact of whatever, let's say, Pierre Poilievre and the Conservatives do going forward, is it always supposed to be through the vein of how is it helping them grow their voter base? Or can it also, I guess, be, or should it, I don't know, be, is it about continuing to motivate the base that they have secured? Or does one, is it binary? Like, does one come at the expense of the other, or are they going to try and do both?
Yeah, I think this is one of those situations where there's no such thing as bad publicity. It went viral for a reason. I think it's red meat for both his base and those that don't like him. The question is, what about those people that are sitting on the fence right now? And I do think that it swings both ways, as my co-panelists have said. This could backfire on him. He's obviously a seasoned career politician. Meanwhile, we've got the editor of the Times-Chronicle who's writing a bunch of stories. He's a very busy guy too. So it does kind of look like he's, lording himself over this reporter a bit. But I do think that it could go both ways. I think at the end of the day, where Poilievre has been able to, rally Canadians, take away some of that Liberal support, in particular, is on pocketbook issues. So while I think this is, a moment for him, at the end of the day, sticking to pocketbook issues and problems that Canadians are dealing with is where he's going to end up, taking that support from the Liberals.